Good afternoon, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of Lunch with Loretta here at Choice Farm Market. I'm joined today by Travis Fritz,
Hey.
Owner of Old Nation Brewery and Pub in Williamston, co-owner with his wife, Camilla.
That's right.
Yep, can't forget that. That's
Of
important.
course.
So feel free to pop on, tell us how your day is going. Our day has been great so far. It's a beautiful day in mid-Michigan, a little overcast. Probably supposed to get a little bit of rain later on, but that doesn't stop us from enjoying ourselves here at the market. So pop on and say hi. We love to hear from you guys. So I wanted to share a couple of things that are new in the market before we get started with our interview with Travis. We've got these cute little gift bags. They're all pre-made up. This is Rhonda Moosoff is putting these together for us here in the market. Along with a few extra goodies in there. It does have their maple syrup, and I like the old-fashioned tin cans that they use. See that?
I do. I'm looking at the
Yeah.
whisk and the spoon. This is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And then they come with the Choice Farm Market pancake mix in there. And so it's really neat. It's a made-up gift. You're on your way to a shower or something like that, or a birthday party, and you don't have anything. Stop in and pick one of these up. I think most people would appreciate that.
100%.
Yeah. We also have, we're fully stocked on our apparel. So we've got both of our brands. We've got the Benjamin Beef. I got the t-shirts here. I'll show you the back. I really like our logo, not to brag or anything, but that's a pretty cool logo.
That blue t-shirt is my favorite t-shirt. I wear it all the time.
Nice, appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Choice Farm Market. And so today we are going to give away a t-shirt, your choice. You can have the Benjamin Beef or you can have the Choice Farm Market. To the first, the first 5 people to comment and share, we will put you in a drawing. So stay tuned to the end, and we will pick a winner for that. And you'll go home sporting a nice t-shirt. And then Rhonda's daughter, Anna, she makes these beautiful. We've got the cutting boards, the charcuterie board. I never know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Charcuterie is what I've heard. Yes, I think you did it right.
Thank you. She does coasters and just like some trays and stuff. And these are really nice, really high quality. Again, another great gift.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
who
anybody
can't
can
use one of these?
100%. Easy to wash too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to push the easy button on stuff like that.
No kidding.
So we'll get started here. I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
All right, outside of what you make,
Yes.
if you had to pick one beer to drink the rest of your life and that's the only beer, what would it be?
Well, it would be Jever Pilsner, which is made in the extreme northern part of Germany, really close to the border of Denmark.
Okay.
And in my opinion, it is one of the finest consistently made beers on the planet. I love that beer.
No, is it only available in Germany, or is it available here in the United States?
So it is available in the States.
Okay.
I honestly, this is not a secret, I don't drink that much. But whenever I have a want to go out and grab beer just for me, then I have to go to Bowling Green, Ohio to buy usually a 12-pack of that beer, and I'll bring it back.
So road trip.
Yeah.
So to our audience out there, let us know what your favorite Old Nation beer is. Mine's the Fritz. It was the Helles.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
well,
then-
it's a similar beer.
I was going to say. And then I found out I couldn't get the Helles, and so I think it was Camilla that said, well, the Fritz.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yep.
that's my favorite. Although, I will tell you, the New World that came out,
You like it?
yeah, I do.
That's good.
I really do.
That's good. That's what we make it for.
Yeah.
We're proud of that one. It took forever to make it.
Did it?
Yeah.
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 Well, it's good. Well
Thanks.
worth the wait.
Thank
Well
you very
worth
much.
the wait. So, fun fact, and maybe most of you already knew this. After water, beer is the second favorite drink. I can attest to that. So, and in fact, around the world, humans consume over 50 billion gallons of beer every year.
50 billion seems like a lot.
Yeah.
How many
yeah.
people are there?
Well, I don't know. I like how they had to specify humans.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. But other.
feeding it to the dogs.
I think that's how they
I don't
make Kobe
recommend that.
beef, right? They sometimes do with beer or beer grain.
Oh.
I'm sure it's
Well,
just people.
well, I know that we used to, when we had the dairy cattle, we used to feed distillers grain.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that makes sense.
There we go.
Yeah. So, Travis, tell us how you first got started into brewing.
So I was put in a position where it was a good idea for me to go to Germany to finish college. It was actually cheaper. It was a cheaper option for me to do that at the time, and I spoke German. So I ended up at the Technical University in Berlin, which sounds probably fancier than it really is. That school had a huge focus on food science particularly. And within that school, they had a brewing college as well. And so as a food science student, the brewing college would put on these garden parties every Friday night when the weather was nice.
Yeah.
And what that meant was they would provide beer that they had made for experiments. Larger companies would contract them to do whatever experiment on a new raw material, whatever.
Yeah.
So they had to do something with that beer. So what they did was they bought a bunch of bread and sauerkraut and sausage and poured the beer, and any student of the university could go there and drink some beer and eat some sausage and bread for free. And so I was there, and the director of the brewing program had come over to me and asked if I had ever brewed beer, and I said no. He asked if I ever worked in a dairy, and I said no, but I used to work on a dairy farm, so I get it a little bit. And he suggested that because they were offering some, not full scholarships, but some assistance to foreign students, that I be a part of the brewing program there. And for that financial reason, almost exclusively, that sounded good to me.
Yeah.
And so I went on within the food science department to finish my degree with a specialty in brewing.
Okay.
And fermentation sciences generally, which would be like cheese and all kinds of stuff. But brewing specifically was interesting to me, just because of the scale of it. And so I had the opportunity to apprentice in Europe, in Germany mostly, and then to come back to the States and work as a brewer in the craft brewing scene, which at that time was like 2003. It was happening, but
before the boom.
Before the boom. And I just thought it was great. I thought the ability to be creative here in the States that wasn't really there in Germany, because it's such an old industry, was awesome. And the people were kind of weird like me, and that was awesome. And it was just a good fit. So starting in 2003, I became a professional brewer here in Michigan.
Now, is Old Nation the first brewery that you started?
It's the first brewery that I started with my own skin all the way in the game.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I did start as a consultant in breweries with other folks.
Okay.
I did work as a consultant for folks in breweries that were already operating but maybe struggling. Some of that worked out and some of it didn't, to be frank. I was made a partner in a brew pub in Detroit called the Detroit Beer Company in 2004. So 2005, I think. So right after I came back. And so I was an owner of that company, but this is the first experience for sure I ever had in starting something from the ground up.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. How long have you guys been in Williamston?
Since 2000. Well, the brewery Old Nation's been in Williamston since 2015.
Yep. Okay. So still fairly new.
Yeah, about 8 years. It feels like we're kind of getting into the fabric of things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know one thing that kind of, because we do provide Old Nation through our Benjamin Beef brand.
Yes.
And I think one of the things when we set out to find a restaurant, that we really liked your commitment to community.
Yes.
I know that you and your wife Camilla do a lot for the community.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's important to us.
Yes,
so,
it's clear.
I mean, only 8 years, but yet you guys are given like you've been there forever, I feel like.
It's crucial.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us about the process of making beer.
So the process of making beer has changed as craft beer particularly has developed, right? So from the base definition of what a beer is, it is a fermented beverage that takes the sugar, which the yeast ferments into alcohol, from a grain, any grain. So there are examples like a beverage called chicha in South America, where it is made from corn, and there are traditional ways and more modern ways of making that, and that is technically beer. But the way I think that Western cultures view it is what's traditionally known as beer to you or me, which is a beverage almost primarily fermented from barley, although we do use wheat and oats. And then using hops, which are a flowering plant, a dioecious plant, as both a stabilizer, non-biological, a non-biological stabilizer, and also as a flavor component. And progressively, particularly in the last 30 years, hops have grown into the prominence that people are familiar with them now as a flavor component. Used to be, for a long, long time in brewing, and again, until just recently, that hops were really mostly just a bittering balance to the sweetness of the sugar that we were deriving from barley.
Okay.
So it was more a balance on the tongue than an impact in aroma and flavor. And since then, of course, for Old Nation and many other breweries, that's become the hop as an ingredient has really risen to prominence in terms of an identifier of one beer to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we actually looked into growing hops after we sold the dairy cattle, and I told my husband, I said, that's so labor intensive.
I'm so glad you didn't.
Might as well go back to milking cows.
You are one of the smartest people I've talked to about growing hops already.
Yeah.
It is. It's insane, and we buy a lot of our hops from the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
In the high desert in Oregon, particularly, and they grow some of the high desert in Washington as well, on the eastern side of the state. And those farms are 6th, 7th, 8th generation farms.
Okay.
And I think that's why they're profitable, and that's they're so knowledgeable about the cultivation and process. They have institutional knowledge that allows them to roll through environmental conditions that change the hop harvest, for example. There's so much to know, and it's such a specialized product.
Yeah, and I think you almost, and the same with barley, because we also looked into growing barley.
Yes.
You have to have your end buyer first in mind before you even start, because they want a certain variety and done a certain way. And with barley, I believe it's crucial that you get it at the exact time, or otherwise the flavor can go.
Flavor. I mean, we're concerned, even more sometimes than as much certainly as flavor with what is the protein content,
yep.
What is the sugar content, what is the starch content, how can we manipulate these grains, what are their diastatic power, and that all has to do with the professionalism and understanding of the farmer, given whatever season they have to grow in, as you say, to harvest at the correct time and to store properly, and all that kind of stuff is so crucial.
Yeah. Do you guys malt your own barley, or do you bring it in?
No. Very few breweries still malt their own barley. I wondered,
yeah.
Largely, we work with one company primarily called Canada Malting Group, which is a large concern that has relationships in Europe as well. And that's typical of brewers. We do use as much local grown barley and malt as we can, but startup malt houses is the same kind of thing as barley.
Yeah.
You really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah. There's one south of here, and then I think the majority of them on the west side of the state. Or
with regard to barley or hop?
The malting.
So we work with a malt house whose name embarrassingly escapes me in Okemos. We have 2 beers on tap now.
Okay.
And which use their oats.
Okay.
So we are less interested at the moment with Michigan barley, and more interested in because there's not a malt house that can supply enough malt for us.
Okay.
And more interested, therefore, than in specialty grains or specialty malting processes from smaller houses.
Okay. How many gallons of beer do you guys produce a year at Old Nation?
About 17,000 barrels times 31 gallons is what it was in per year. Yeah.
I know whenever Todd and I are delivering the beef and we go in the back, and it's like it smells so good. We joke about we're going to bring our cots and just sleep there because we love the smell.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know it's a big operation.
It is.
There.
Yeah.
So, can you explain, because I'm kind of ignorant of this, the difference between an IPA and IPL, the different types of beer, the ales, the pilsners,
yes,
all that kind of stuff?
It becomes more confusing by the season, but there is an answer to that question, and it is largely that the beer is generally categorized under 2 groups, right? And those groups, as you said, are lager and ale. And that identifies specifically the type of yeast that's used in fermentation, and more specifically the temperature at which fermentation occurs, right?
Okay.
So lager yeast, for example, lager is a German word that means to store. And lager yeast can tolerate temperatures and work and actively ferment at temperatures as low as around 50 degrees. It can go lower, but it's happiest there. Whereas ale yeast likes somewhere between 65 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And just like any living being, ales, even lager yeast, will function at a slower rate the colder they get.
Okay.
What this does in lagers is it allows that yeast time to fully process and metabolize those sugars into the alcohol that we're looking for exclusively, and no other real contribution to the beer outside of just the general flavor of yeast that you might taste in bread.
Okay.
Ale yeast operates the same with regard to breadiness and all of that kind of stuff, depending on the strain. But what it does that differentiates ale to the consumer from lager mostly is that yeast in an ale may also contribute its own sort of phenolic flavors as it ferments.
Okay.
And a great example of that for folks who are familiar with traditional style beers, and particularly German beers, is German wheat beer. So that kind of hazy wheat beer that you might see in German videos or whatever smells and can taste like really strongly like banana or clove or bubblegum. And for example, clove is a compound the yeast is producing called 4-vinyl guaiacol as it ferments. As it goes through its Krebs or citric acid cycle, it just kicks that compound off. And that becomes a hallmark of that beer. So the point of an ale often is to have those hallmarks, where the point of a lager is to not have any of them at all. So what you find most commonly is in lager representations like Pilsner or Helles, where the point is not to knock you in the nose with any particular flavor,
Right.
but to enjoy that beer like you would enjoy fresh baked bread.
Okay.
Much like you wouldn't say with a great warm piece of bread, oh, well, I really taste the flour and I really taste the yeast and I really taste the water. You would just say, man, that's really good bread.
Right.
And with lager, that's the way it is too. So the differentiators are way more subtle and nuanced, and they take a lot more time and effort and practice to execute as a brewer.
Okay.
And the payoff isn't as stunning to the consumer, but it does create this really, it can create this really excellent product. So to wrap it up, the way I think about it and the way I've talked about it a lot is that lagers are a little bit more like classical or jazz music, if you put it in musical terms.
All right.
And ales tend to be more like punk or rock and roll, right? They both have their place. They're both difficult in their own ways, and they both absolutely are valid, but it's a different set of skills to do each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then how do like an IPA,
Yes.
how would that differ from, I think we had one in here that was an IPL, it wasn't an Old Nation, it was another one.
Yes.
IPL, so is that like more of a lager than a?
It would be a lager.
Okay.
So we have a beer called a Boreal out right now, for example, and that is a lager that we're dry hopping, so we're using really aromatic hops heavily like we would in an IPA.
Okay.
But we're leaving a lot of the bitterness behind because the body of the beer is what we call really clean, right? So it tastes like grain, and that's about it. Okay. Whereas if you're making an IPA, traditionally, there may be a number of different kind of character grains that you're using in order to evoke the flavors of caramel or other baking flavors. You're using a yeast that, for one reason or another, has its own outstanding quality that it brings to the beer. So it's more of a symphony where, and I always put this kind of in musical terms, whereas the IPLs tend to be more of like a quartet, right? More to the point, more direct, more about the melody, whereas the IPAs tend to be more about the larger effect of the beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you have a personal favorite?
That we make?
Yeah.
I like.
So you got the boss tweet.
I got the boss
Yeah.
tweet on. Yeah, I like the lagers the most.
Okay.
That's near and dear. That's that's the kind of brewing I started doing, and to me, that's where the real skill of the brewer is.
Okay. Is there a correct way to drink beer?
I think when we talked about this before, I said with your mouth. Yes.
Okay.
But there's a correct way to drink beer that is different wherever you travel, right?
Okay.
So the way I was taught to drink beer was when I was an exchange student in Munich when I was a teenager. And I was culturally at least Catholic, and so I went to Mass with my German grandmother. And after Mass, she took me out to drink beer and to teach me the correct German way to drink beer. And that has to do with posture and how much of the beer you drink, and it's very ceremonial.
Okay.
Whereas here, the correct way to drink beer is to put it in a cup that doesn't leak and don't spill in it, right? So, yes. And I think it's good to learn those drinking traditions if you choose to drink alcohol, because when you look at those traditional drinking traditions, they have a lot more to do with drinking responsibly than it seems like on the surface. And I think for that reason, those drinking cultures are really valuable, and I lament often the loss of them here in the U.S. to one degree or another.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I agree. So what are your plans for the future? Are you guys expanding there? Are you? Because I know I read, that you're kind of boxed in, but you do have options.
Yeah, there are options. I don't see us growing more in Williamston. We like the size of the brewery. The infrastructure of the town can't really handle much more.
Right.
We're by far the largest water consumer in the town. And so, for us, that growth is happening off-site. I've been working out of a brewery that I helped to commission in Detroit in 2012 called Brew Detroit, which is a contract facility. And I'm there every week. I work very closely with those folks, and they make almost 40% of our beer now.
Okay.
So that's where the growth will happen in the medium term. In the long term, I don't wish to have any more pub operations, and Camilla doesn't either. So I think the pub will remain as it is. In a perfect world, as our path indicates now, we'll continue to grow reasonably year to year. We'll continue to gain prominence and force in the Great Lakes region. And we look to be somewhere around 60 or 70,000 barrels of beer within the next 10 years.
Okay.
And that's about where I'd like to leave it.
Okay.
Honestly. And we have every opportunity to do so. So that's the goal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you realize, hey, we made it?
We made it. Tomorrow, I hope. Right? I think that when you get the feeling that you've made it, you lost what got you there.
Okay.
Right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
So should you live in a world of absolute emotional tension all the time? I don't think so. But I think you should always be a little hungry. And so that's why goal setting is crucial, and that's why we focus on our goals and rearrange them all the time in order to make what our resources can handle as efficient and effective as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Anything else you'd like to share? Or?
I love you guys. I think you're great.
We love you too. We have a very, symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
I gotta tell a little bit of backstory here.
Sure.
We when we first started Benjamin Beef, and we were licensed to sell to restaurants and stuff, and we were thinking, where would we like to sell? So we loaded up the cooler and our grandson Gunner, and decided we were gonna set out. And our number one was Old Nation.
Oh, thank you.
And we thought, well, but we'll stop there, and then we had two other places that we were going to stop. Well, after meeting Camilla, and I think the timing was right. I know that she was talking about revamping the menu and all that.
Yep.
We left there, and we didn't go to the other two places. We just felt a connection, and it was like, man, we really want this partnership.
Well,
so.
And I'd like to maybe even back out a little bit, and if there are any folks in here who also have the decision to work with local folks where possible or not, and give a little bit of insight into how it truly benefited us on paper and in our hearts to work with local folks. We went with Benjamin Beef as our beef supplier just before the pandemic, I believe.
Yes.
And the volatility that was present in the market generally for beef during the pandemic was not felt by Old Nation at all because of our relationship with Benjamin Beef. And that is a big deal. And those kind of relationships are more valuable than anything in business, I think. And, you win some, you lose some, no matter who you go with.
Right.
It's better to be in the same boat and rowing in the same direction. And I can absolutely recommend to anyone listening to hear the folks around you who are in business or trying to get into business out for that reason, right? Especially when you feel some sort of a a connection like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was important to us too.
Good.
I mean, so, all right. Anything else you'd like to share?
No.
Okay.
I'm happy that you invited me. I thank you.
Well, I appreciate you saying yes and
Yeah,
coming
of
on with
course.
us. So,
Yeah.
and we do carry the Old Nation beer here in the store.
Absolutely.
So stop in and grab some. Let's see. We've got some upcoming events that I wanted to announce. We do have another cruise in coming August 25th. That'll be from 5 to 8 here at the market. We hope to see everybody out again. We've had such a great time. We've done 2 of them so far, and they've been successful, and we just love seeing people come out.
My sons
and-
loved the fall festival, by the way. They
Yeah,
loved it. We'll be
yeah. I
out this
think
year.
I got a picture of
You did?
Yeah,
Yep.
they came with Star Wars.
Yep.
So, yep. So the fall festival will start September 23rd. It'll run Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 6. You can buy tickets online, or you can stop in and get them at the gate. And then we also are planning a Farmers Field Day. Our town used to have what was called Leroy's Fireman Field Day, and we had a big ox roast, and it was like the town celebration.
Yeah.
And since the pandemic, we've not had that. And so I've been working with the DDA and a couple of churches, the Weberville Garden Club, the school, the Lions Club, and we are planning events for the 30th. We'll have a lot of them out here on our site, and then they'll have some activities uptown. We'll be serving the ox burgers that everybody misses. So yeah, so we're excited about that. So those are
that's
some
great.
things coming up. Yeah. So now it's time. We're gonna announce the winner here. Announce the winner of the giveaway. Oh, okay. We're going to do it at the end of the day. We've got to go through the process of seeing who commented and shared and all that kind of stuff. So we will announce the winner at the end of the day. So, all right. Well, I'm going to throw it back at you guys, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please stop in and visit us. Also, please like and share our videos. It does help get us out there. If you missed the live show, you can always go on to our YouTube channel, Choice Farm Market, and we've got all of our live videos up there plus additional videos. So thank you for joining us. Have a great day.